Hey everybody, welcome to Workforce Gaming. I am Brad, here with Doug.
Hey.
Horizon Forbidden West.
Mm-hmm.
DLC came out.
Mm-hmm.
It is the Burning Shores expansion. This is all
Mm-hmm.
post-game content, post-game quests
Yes.
to Horizon Forbidden West. So,
Mm-hmm.
quick history on Horizon Forbidden West. Absolutely love it. Amazing. I'm a huge Horizon fan. Loved Forbidden West. You went on and on for the past about what 14 months about this game just seems boring. I'm just not a fan of this game.
Yeah.
And then I get a text from you yesterday morning. Ooh, Burning Shores is really cool.
Burning Shores. I'm a sucker for actually like for real PS5 exclusives, like cool PS5 tech, because there really isn't that many.
Yep.
And then I was like, I can't have that much left of Forbidden West to go. So I did. I was like, okay, I'll just bite the bullet and finish Horizon Forbidden West. I warmed up to it. Let's just say I warmed up to it. A little bit. I finished that and I was like, okay, well, let's try the Burning Shores, because the one thing I always like about DLCs is they're always a good indicator of what they're playing with, especially if they come out like pretty far after the original game.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really curious, especially with the cloud tech. It's like, okay, what are they thinking for Horizon 3? Because I was still kind of put off by Forbidden West. Like Forbidden West, even after I was done with it, I was like, okay, that was nice. Am I super excited for Horizon 3? Kind of, but there's like some mechanical stuff that I'm really bothered by. So I was like seeing, it's like, did Burning Shores fix those things? And they absolutely did. I really, really like this DLC. I like it a whole bunch because it fixed a lot of mechanical annoying things that I was having with the other ones.
And I think that's where we need to start with. That I think this is definitely a step up for Forbidden West, and I love Forbidden West. I think it was my number 2 game of the year last year, and this does everything that does just a step better. To start with, I think Forbidden West, the main thing was it was just so big that it just drug on. And one of my favorite things about Zero Dawn is it was an open world that didn't feel overwhelming. It felt like by the time I was done with that game, I knew my way around it. I knew where everything was. I knew the path to everything. Forbidden West just kind of felt like, all right, I'm just going to fast travel everywhere. And there's a point over there. This, again, they condensed the map down to kind of this one area and this one island chain. And it's the perfect size. You kind of get a feel for it, even in just the, I pretty much just went straight through the main quest and did about 6-ish hours, maybe a little bit more than that. Especially the final boss, which we'll talk about, which is a bitch, but I love it. But it was so condensed. I think that was the big thing that stuck out to me, is the improvement here was just the size and the scope of it was a much more narrow focus, much better. It didn't feel like it needed to be this epic giant 45-70 hour thing. Just no, let's zero in on what makes Horizon amazing.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing about the big world, and like, it's not just a smaller world, it's uniquely set up from the Horizon, from Forbidden West, because Forbidden West, it's just like a large single landmass, but this is like a series of smaller islands. And I think the thing that really, really helps the game because of that is that like you can explore this one little island and know you fully explored it before moving on to the next part. With like Forbidden West, you can never tell if like you fully explored anything because there's just no real boundaries to anything. Like you explore like a house kind of thing in Forbidden West, but then you're like, okay, and then like I guess I can explore the entire world. There's no boundaries of like route where you're exploring was, but I just like there was like these individual little islands. Like, okay, I know I can go there. I can actually do that entire island in 10 minutes and know I'm done with it. Like once I leave, and I think that was like, and again, like you said, like pulling down the scope. I think the one thing that I really, really enjoyed they doing, and this may be more like with Forbidden West. The thing I really didn't like about Forbidden West is that they had the system called the coil system, which was basically modifiers that you could put on your clothes, and there were modifiers you could put on your weapons that would essentially like give them all these like interesting perks. The problem with that system is that in order to even play in that system, you'd get one coil spot on a weapon unless you upgrade it, I think like 3 times or something like that. But what they did here is they introduced, you can buy these new weapons. They immediately have 3 coil spots. You can open the fourth coil spot really quickly.
Yep.
They're they're like relatively cheap weapons, so you can immediately start playing a lot more in that coil system. Like immediately, it didn't take like this like 5 hours of grinding to get your one bow that you're probably gonna throw away anyway for a newer, better bow. It's like, here's just the best bow. Go crazy with that coil system. I really, really like that.
Yeah,
and they did the same thing with the armor.
And that's actually really funny because I was gonna point that out. I actually played through all of Forbidden West and never apparently got the trophy for putting on, I think it was like more than 2 coils onto a weapon, and I got it like 4 minutes into Burning Shores. I was like, oh, new weapon. Oh, there's coil slots. This is fun. Okay, cool. Boom, boom, boom. Bloop. And I was like, oh. I never actually bothered digging into this enough because it was so overbearing, and it was so... I mean, there was so much grinding and so many parts you had to get for each individual thing that was just, it never felt worth it. For like, oh, this now has a 5% burning upgrade and things like that. It was just like, it's not worth my time and effort for that perk. And now that they're so readily and easily like insertable, I was actually able to play with it and have some fun with it.
Yeah, essentially, you get like, so you have all these 5% fire ones, but now you add 3 of them at once, and now you have a 15% burn rate, where you actually can feel it. Like, it actually feels like it matters when you're doing that stuff. And that was, the one thing I thought, the one part that really annoyed me in the original one that they kind of ignored here, and I think it's probably the thing I think that they like didn't fix, I think are kind of going away, was the pouch upgrades and all that stuff. There's like, you can upgrade a million little things, and like they didn't touch that stuff at all. I was like, okay, so they're clearly trying to figure out the armor in this, but I think all those like million pouches and quivers you can update, they're like, I think that's probably, I'm like pretty certain that's going to be going away. I loved how easy it was to upgrade stuff.
Fingers crossed on all that, because all that upgrade stuff, and I think that was one of your main qualms with the game originally, was you're just like, I don't like all this overly invasive RPG aspect of it. And again, I think I just flat out ignored most of it because I was like, well, I don't need to upgrade all this. And this very much felt like you could kind of just play around with it, and it made it more of a fun system, more of something that was intimidating and off-putting. And I think that kind of took one of those things. And that's what it kind of felt like this game just did in general, is every little kind of nitpick, they kind of did something to address it. They might not have fixed it fully, but it seemed like every kind of nitpick I heard for Forbidden West, I feel like this just did better. And I think we can kind of get into the story with that a little bit. The writing's much better. The characters are developed much better. Again, that was another one of those nitpicks where it's just like, some of the writing in this is just, okay, let's get through it. Let's move on. And this, the writing is great. The story is very interesting. It's a very self-contained story. And even just the character dialogue, it's all better. And I know that was another thing I think you specifically had with it, but I know a lot of people had with it, was just, bleh, okay, move on. None of this is interesting.
It was super, super noticeable because I finished Forbidden West right before playing this one. And the thing I noticed in Forbidden West is that a lot of characters spent a lot of time just explaining things. And then you really, I think the comment I had to use, like, I can't tell how anybody feels about anything because they spend so much time explaining it that they actually don't have time to actually talk about how they feel about the thing. And the thing that was really interesting, in Forbidden West, there's this one traveling troupe of that everybody knows this mission because the writing was so surprisingly good, was this traveling troupe of light show artists. And just the cutscenes were really good. And like the reason is, I think, is because they just do light shows. They don't have to explain any world building stuff. It's like, we just do this traveling light show and let's just do that. And in this one, it felt like they just had a very clear mission that they didn't have to like go into in-depth details. Like, there's a tower that's shooting shit out of the sky. We got to go take it down. So instead of just explaining why it's explained as like, how are we feeling about the situation, which I just like immediately felt more connected to the characters because like they all had emotions. Like Aloy, I think the excuse that I felt with Forbidden West is like, well, you know, she's kind of stoic, and you know, when she was in the Nora tribe, she was like, you know, a person who's off there, so of course she has these weird interactions. It's like, oh no, the writing is just it just wasn't as good because she's much more emotive and an interesting character in this one.
And even Seika, who's the new character, I have to say is probably easily one of the best, if not the best, Horizon side character that's been introduced. Just in the entire series, just because again the conversations back and forth are great, the way they interact is great, the way they kind of develop a common purpose feels meaningful, feels impactful, whereas I feel like a lot of other Horizon side characters over the games have been a lot of just like, oh, you're here too, all right, let's go.
Characters were dying in the finale of Forbidden West and I had no emotion. I was like, that I was like, some of these characters I've known for many hours and they're dying, and I'm just like, just nothing. I don't know. It's like I just had absolutely no tie to these characters at all. But say it with like Sayek, not that she dies or anything. It's just like, oh, just immediately more endearing.
Yeah, and this is as close as I'll get to a spoiler with this. This ends with kind of like a dialogue choice at the end of how you want to go about continuing Aloy's relationship with Seika as the game ends, and just we'll kind of leave it at that. And it's this weird moment where you're like, oh, I'm actually invested in like what happens with these characters in a Horizon game. Whereas, and I think I even talked about this when we were talking about our game of the year last year. The thing that's big for me, Horizon, is the overall world, the world building, this scenario that is the Horizon setting. It's not the characters, and this is the first kind of time I felt like, ooh, I actually need to think like, Aloy actually has some like motive here to pick these different choices, like which one actually fits for the character, and that's never a feeling I'd had with Horizon before.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm really curious how they're gonna, because I think a lot of the benefit too with the story and everything we're talking about, it all seems because it's really pared down for Forbidden West to the point where I'm like, I don't know what Horizon 3 is, because Horizon Burning Shores is just a better version because it's so pared down. Do you make a Horizon 3 that's a more pared down Forbidden West? Is it and that's like, it was like I was trying to get a sense of like, there's just these two totally different ways to approach this that I don't know what they're gonna do.
Yeah, and again,
when it comes to the third game,
and I feel like that's where Zero Dawn, I think, is this good sweet spot for me, where it feels very pared down compared to Forbidden West. Yeah. But when I played it initially, I never had that feeling. It just felt like, oh, this is a really, really tight, compact, open world that has just as much stuff as I want in it. Whereas Forbidden West, again, was just overbearing in my mind. So
there's almost no benefit for making a large map in Forbidden West. Like, even thinking back to it, well, there's some cool visual stuff.
Yes.
But like literally, that's it. I think it only hurt the game. I really only think it hurt the game by making Forbidden West as big as it was. And this is only proves that.
I agree.
This only proves that. Yeah.
So I don't know if you go to like a smaller thing of where it's like, okay, we do something in this area, this small area, then this small area, then this small area, or what you do. But I will be interested to see where Horizon 3 goes. Just quick notes on the story, because I did really, really like it. And I don't want to even... It's post-game content, so it's kind of hard to talk about without straight up spoiling Forbidden West.
Yeah.
Basically, the group of people that shows up towards the end of Forbidden West, there's one offshoot guy who basically kind of got out before you went after him. He kind of offshooted to this other island here and kind of made this own thing. And there's actually a lot of really interesting things that he does with kind of who he is and the group of people that he comes from, and how he interacts with these tribes that don't have quite the knowledge of old tech and the current tech, and they don't have quite that same technology knowledge, and the way that he handles those people and interacts with those people is very, very good, because in Forbidden West, these people you don't see actually interact with the people of the present.
I was light spoilers for Forbidden West. They're like, I was shocked when they showed how many of those people were around.
Yeah.
In Forbidden West, like at the end, I was like, I didn't know there's that many people around. Yeah. And then it's like, it doesn't really matter.
And there's one
really
more.
Like, they're really underdeveloped. Yeah, they're really underdeveloped. Yeah.
Because they do kind of, I feel like they don't even show up until about 75% of the way through that game, outside of like a couple of quick like, whoa, who was that you get kind of sporadically. Exactly. But just the way that he interacts with people, I think, is really, really interesting. And then again, the way that they kind of link him in, obviously Aloy has some agency for why she wants to be there because of what happens at the end of Forbidden West. But even Seika has some very heavy personal stakes in this because of how he's interacting with this tribe that's there. So really cool story stuff. Good extension of Forbidden West. It doesn't necessarily have that like 2.5 like, oh, what's coming next, because it definitely kind of leaves Aloy in the same spot she is at the end of Forbidden West. So you could probably get away with not playing this, and Aloy's still in the same spot, because you kind of end with still on my mission that I had at the end of Forbidden West. Just kind of a cool side story there. I do want to stop and say the final boss in this, amazing. Forbidden West final boss, again, another low point. Even Zero Dawn.
I forgot what it was, and I just did it. Until you mentioned.
It's more. Forbidden West, I feel like is more of just kind of like it's almost more of just like a big like slog through a lot of guys, more so than like one
Yeah.
big epic final boss. This very much has a very clear final boss. It is a long sequence. It is a multi-stage thing where you're moving through different parts, multi-stage bosses. It is giant. It is epic. It is a pain in the ass, but so much fun. Just it's one of the best, I think, action scenes in almost all of Horizon. It's just
Yeah.
it's insane.
Yeah.
It is amazing and just one of easily the best fights in Horizon. It's so good, and I think that's kind of where this comes down to is Seika, one of the best side characters, super great self-contained story. Final boss, one of the best action scenes in this, the best looking thing for Horizon, just some of the best writing in Horizon. This seriously does have some of the best elements of all of Horizon in it.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't even talk about it, but I think that a lot of the combat stuff they changed was also really, really good. They did some interesting combat changes as well that were kind of minor, but just giving you a bigger space to play in makes the game a whole lot more fun.
Yes.
Than having all these really tight arenas that were in Forbidden West, where you kept getting knocked on your ass every 10 seconds.
Yep. Except for the frogs. I hate the frogs. Those frogs.
The frogs were fun.
The frogs screwed me up so much. There's one part where you have to like sneak around like two of them and activate a couple things, and it drove me insane. I hate the frogs.
Yeah. I'll say not even the frogs in general, but I think what they did is they just made all the arenas just much bigger than they were in Forbidden West, and it just like, oh, you can see the machines do cool things, and you can set your spots, and I'll do all these interesting things that like should have been in Forbidden West.
Well, even like verticality in terms of like, again, even the frogs that I'm thinking of specifically, it's like two high points, a canyon, you kind of come in on one spot, so even the arenas are more varied just in the space that you have to play in. It's just such a better game than Forbidden West, and I love Forbidden West. Like, I mean, and
I don't like Forbidden West, and I love this.
I mean, easily one of the best DLCs out there. It's incredible. But we are Workforce Gaming. We try and put out new videos every Monday. Please subscribe to our channel, put a comment below, and we will see you later.
Bye.